My name is Stephanie, and at 36 years old, I never expected to be plotting revenge against my own family. When Jason and I married 3 years ago, I hoped my daughter Harper would finally have the father figure she deserved. The luxury cruise for my father-in-law Walter's 60th birthday seemed perfect for bonding. Instead, on our first island stop, they abandoned my 12-year-old daughter for 3 hours in this scorching sun while they enjoyed a private tour. Harper looked at me with sunburned cheeks and asked a simple question that changed everything. If you are watching this video, I would love to know where you are from. Please hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to choose between keeping peace in your family or standing up for what is right. Trust me, what happened next is something you will not want to miss. The path that led us to that cruise ship was paved with good intentions and quiet compromises. When Harper was just 5 years old, her biological father walked out on us, without so much as a goodbye. One day he was there helping with bath time and bedtime stories, and the next day he was gone, leaving only a hastily written note about needing to find himself. Harper would stand by the window for months afterward, watching for his card pull into the driveway. The waiting broke my heart more than his absence ever could. For years, it was just Harper and me against the world. I worked overtime as a graphic designer to keep us afloat, often sketching logos and layouts long after Harper had fallen asleep. We developed our own little rituals and inside jokes. Every Friday night was pizza and movie night on our worn but comfortable couch. Sunday mornings meant pancakes shaped like whatever Harper was obsessed with. That week, from dinosaurs to rocket ships to disputes, TB, and that week from dinosaurs to rocket ships. Then, Jason walked into my life, quite literally when he spilled coffee on my plan portfolio during a meeting at his law firm. He was apologetic, charming, and surprisingly good with Harper when they first met. He would bring her small gifts, not expensive ones, but thoughtful ones, like a rock shaped like a heart he found during his morning run, or a book about a girl who a detective that reminded him of her. Jason proposed on a regular Tuesday evening while helping Harper with her science homework. It was not grand or flashy, just a quiet moment where he said he could not imagine his life without either of us in it. Harper hugged him so tightly that night, and I thought we had finally found our happily ever after. The Walter family was a different story altogether. From the moment I met them at our engagement dinner, I sensed their reservation. Walter and Margaret Jason's parents lived in a sprawling house in the suburbs. Walter, the kind with a perfectly manicured lawn and a 3-car garage. Walter had built a successful investment firm from the ground up, and Margaret dedicated her life to maintaining their social status. They smiled politely when Jason introduced Harper and me, but their eyes held a coolness that never quite thawed. Jason's sister Amanda was worse. With her husband Patrick and their 2 perfect children, Lucas and Lily, she represented everything the Walter family valued. Both children attended private school, played multiple instruments, and excelled at sports. Amanda never missed an opportunity to highlight their achievements, often in direct comparison to Harper. Oh, Harper is only reading at grade level. Lily is already 2 grades ahead in reading. Small cuts delivered with a smile. Then there was Bruce, Jason's younger brother, who worked for their father's company. His wife, Eileen, came from old money and made it clear she thought Jason had married beneath him. Their children, Thomas and Zoe, were taught to view Harper as someone of an outsider. They would invite all the cousins to play, only to exclude Harper from their games, saying they were for family only. From the beginning, I noticed how differently Harper was treated compared to her cousins. At Christmas, while Lucas and Lily Thomas and Zoe received expensive electronic gadgets and designer clothes, Harper would get generic board games or clothes that were always slightly the wrong size or style. During family gatherings, the adults would fall over the accomplishments of the other children while barely acknowledging Harper's straight-A report card or her beautiful artwork. When I brought these concerns to Jason, he would sigh and run his hand through his hair, a gesture I came to recognize as his way of avoiding conflict. They are just getting used to her stuff. Give them time. Or worse, you are being too sensitive. They do not mean anything by it. But I saw the hurt in Harper's eyes when she was sidelined or forgotten. I saw how she tried harder and harder to gain their approval, only to be met with the same cool indifference. Despite all this, I kept hoping things would change. Jason was kind and loving with Harper, and I believed that eventually his family would see her the way he did, the way I did, as this incredible, thoughtful, creative child who deserved to be cherished. When Walter announced he was taking the entire family on a luxury cruise to celebrate his 60th birthday, I thought perhaps this was our chance. A week together, away from work and school and the usual routines, might help Harper finally be accepted as a true member of the family. This will be good for all of us, Jason said as we packed our suitcases. Dad is really making an effort here. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that this cruise would be the turning point in our family dynamic. Harper was ecstatic about the trip, her first real vacation. She researched the ship online, printed out deck plans, and circled activities she wanted to try. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and for once, I let myself hope that everything would work out perfectly. Looking back now, I should have known better. I should have recognized the warning signs. But hope is a powerful thing, especially when it comes to family. And I wanted so badly for Harper to have what I never did. A large family that loved and supported her unconditionally. The night before we left, Harper sat on her bed, surrounded by carefully folded clothes and new swimsuits, her face serious as she looked up at me. "Do you think they will like me better after this trip?" she asked, her voice small but determined. In that moment, I made a promise to myself and to her, though I only said part of it out loud. "They would be lucky to know you the way I do," I told her, smoothing her hair. "But no matter what happens, I will always be on your side. Always." What I did not say was that my patience with the Walter family was wearing thin, and that this trip would be their last chance to treat my daughter with the respect and kindness she deserved. The cruise ship was more luxurious than anything Harper or I had ever experienced. Rising like a gleaming white mountain from the dock, its 18 decks sparkled with lights and promise. Harper squeezed my hand as we boarded, her eyes wide with wonder at the crystal chandeliers and marble floors of the grand atrium. "Is this really where we are staying for a whole week?" she whispered. And the pure joy in her voice made me determine that nothing would spoil this for her. Walter had spared no expense booking connecting suites for everyone on one of the highest decks. As the porter led us down plush-carpeted hallways, I noticed Jason's parents, his siblings, and their families were all clustered together at one end of the corridor. Our room, however, was around the corner and down another hallway. "And here is the room for the young lady," the porter said cheerfully, stopping at a door that was quite a distance from our suite. I frowned, looking at Jason, who shrugged. "Dad thought Harper might like her own space," he explained, not meeting my eyes. "You know, like a special treat." But when we entered the small interior cabin with no windows, I knew this was no treat. It was the smallest and least expensive room category on the ship, tucked away from the rest of the family, as if to emphasize Harper's outsider status. Meanwhile, I had glimpsed Lucas and Lily sharing a spacious balcony suite right next to their parents, as were Thomas and Zoe. "It is okay," Mom Harper said, trailing her fingers along the narrow bed. "I do not mind." But I could see the hurt in her eyes. the understanding that once again she was being treated as less than her cousins. At the mandatory safety drill, Walter gathered everyone together, handing out small gift bags. "A little something to start our adventure right," he announced with a broad smile. The children eagerly opened their bags. The cousins received new waterproof digital cameras, expensive headphones, and ship credit cards loaded with spending money. Harper opened her bag to find a plastic disposable camera and a ship map that was freely available at the guest services desk. Jason squeezed my shoulder when he saw my expression darkened. "Dad probably just did not know what she would like," he whispered. "Do not make a scene." That became his mantra throughout the first 2 days of the cruise. When Amanda arranged for Lucas and Lily to have private swimming lessons at the ship's pool, but did not include Harper, Jason said, "They probably just forgot to ask." When Bruce and Eileen took all the children to the arcade, but returned Harper after just 30 minutes claiming she seemed bored, Jason said maybe she really was not having fun. I watched my daughter retreat further into herself with each slight. At dinner in the main dining room where we were all seated at a large table, Harper would try to share stories about school or her art projects, only to be interrupted or ignored. Eventually, she stopped trying, pushing her food around her plate, while the adults lavished attention on the other children. One night, after a particularly difficult dinner, where Margaret had openly criticized Harper's table manners while praising Lily's natural grace, I found my daughter sitting alone on the balcony of our suite, staring out at the dark ocean. "I do not think they will ever like me," she said, without turning around. I sat beside her, pulling her clothes. "Then that is their loss, sweetheart." "But why?" she asked, her voice cracking. "What did I do wrong?" "Nothing," I said firmly. "You did absolutely nothing wrong. Some people just cannot see past their own prejudices, even when something wonderful is right in front of them." Harper leaned her head against my shoulder. "Jason tries, I guess, but he never stands up for me. Not really." Her observation struck me like a physical blow because she was right. Jason was kind to Harper when we were alone, but in front of his family, he never challenged their treatment of her. He chose peace over justice every time. "I want you to know something," I said, turning to look into her eyes. "If anyone ever hurts you, I will protect you. I will stand up for you no matter who it is. That is my promise." Harper studied my face for a long moment, as if memorizing it, or perhaps searching for any sign of insincerity. Finally, she nodded. "I believe you." The next morning at breakfast, Walter made an announcement that had everyone buzzing with excitement. "Tomorrow we dock at Paradise Island," he said, beaming around the table, "and I have arranged a special excursion just for the family, a private tour of some caves and hidden beaches that regular tourists never get to see." The cousins high-fived each other while the adults discussed what to pack for the day trip. Harper turned to me, a genuine smile on her face for the first time in days. "That sounds really cool," she whispered. "Maybe I can take some pictures for my art project." I nodded, relieved to see her enthusiasm return. This was exactly the kind of inclusive family activity I had been hoping for. Perhaps things were finally turning around. That evening, Jason and I argued in our suite, while Harper was at a kids' club activity. "I know they have not been perfect," he admitted, "but they are trying. Tomorrow's excursion is for everyone, Harper included. That is progress, right?" I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that Walter's grand gesture was a step toward accepting Harper as part of the family. But something felt off, a nagging suspicion I could not quite shake. "Just promise me one thing," I said to Jason. "If they pull something tomorrow, if they exclude Harper in any way, you will stand with us. You will choose us." "Of course," he said, pulling me into a hug. "But you will see everything will be fine." As I fell asleep that night, I found myself hoping he was right while preparing for the possibility that he was wrong. Either way, Tomorrow would be a turning point. I just had no idea how significant that turn would be. Paradise Island lived up to its name as our ship docked early the next morning. From the upper deck, we could see pristine white beaches curving around turquoise waters, lush green hills rising in the distance. Harper pressed against the Glean camera, already clicking away, capturing the colorful buildings of the port and the crystal clear water. It is even prettier than the pictures she breathed her face alight with excitement. We gathered in the ship's atrium, everyone dressed in swimsuits and light cover-ups, tote bags filled with sunscreen, towels, and water bottles. Walter stood at the center of our group, playing the sunglasses and crisp linen shirt. "The tender boats will take us to shore," he explained, referring to the smaller vessels used when ships cannot dock directly at a port. "Once there, we will meet our private guide, who will take us to the caves. I have been told they are spectacular, with underground pools that you can swim in." The cousins chattered excitedly about the adventure ahead. For once, Harper was included in their conversation, exchanging theories about what kind of fish they might see. My heart lightened, seeing her temporarily accepted into their circle. As we boarded the tender boat, however, Harper suddenly grew quiet, her face paling as the small vessel began to rock with the waves. By the time we were halfway to shore, she was clutching the seat with white knuckles, her forehead beaded with sweat. "Mom," she whispered, "I do not feel good." I put my arm around her shoulders, feeling her body trembling slightly. "It is just a bit of motion sickness, honey. We will be on land soon." But when we finally stepped onto the dock, Harper still looked unsteady. I guided her to a bench in the shade, away from the press of tourists, disembarking from various cruise ships. "Let us sit here for a few minutes, until you feel better," I suggested, reaching into my bag for a bottle of water. Jason hovered nearby, looking anxiously between us and his family, who were already moving toward the meeting point for their tour. "Is she okay?" he asked, his forehead creased with worry. "Just seasick," I explained. "She needs about 15 minutes to settle her stomach, then we will catch up." Jason nodded, glancing at his watch. "I will tell everyone to wait," he said, jogging over to where Walter was, gesturing impatiently. I sat with Harper, helping her sip water slowly, rubbing her back in gentle circles. "Deep breaths," I encouraged. "The feeling will pass soon." Gradually, the color began to return to her cheeks and her breathing steadied. After about 20 minutes, Jason returned, but to my surprise, he was alone. "Where is everyone?" I asked, looking past him for the rest of the family. He shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. "They had to go ahead. The guide said they could not delay the tour. Something about tides and cave access." A cold feeling settled in my stomach. "They all went without us." "It is not like that," Jason said quickly. "It was just bad timing. They have been planning this for months. Harper will feel better soon." "Right, we can take a taxi and meet them there." I looked at Harper, who was sitting up straighter now, the worst of her nausea apparently past. "Are you feeling well enough to go now?" I asked her. She nodded determination, replacing discomfort on her face. "I do not want to miss the caves." Great Jason said, relief evident in his voice. "I have the address right here. We will be with them in no time." He flagged down a taxi, giving the driver instructions before turning back to us. "I should catch up with them to let them know you are on your way." "The driver knows exactly where to take you." Before I could protest, he was hurrying toward another waiting cab. Our driver was friendly, pointing out local landmarks as we wound through the small town and up into the hills. But when we reached the designated spot, a small visitor center near the entrance to a nature preserve, my confusion grew. There was no sign of the Walter family, no private tour group, just a handful of tourists browsing a gift shop. "Are you sure this is the right place?" I asked the driver, who nodded confidently. Yes, ma'am. This is the cave entrance, the only one on this side of the island. I approached the ticket booth, showing the address Jason had given me. I am looking for a private tour group, the Walter Party. The young woman behind the counter shook her head. We do not do private tours here, ma'am. All visitors join the regular guided tours that leave every hour. A sinking feeling grew in my chest as I pulled out my phone to call Jason, straight to voicemail. I tried Walter, Margaret, Amanda, even Bruce. No one answered. With growing frustration, I sent text messages to all of them. We are at the cave entrance. Where are you? Harper watched her initial excitement fading with each unanswered call. They are not here, are they? She asked quietly. There must be some misunderstanding, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Maybe there is another cave system on the island. We waited in the small plaza outside the visitor center, the sun climbing higher in the sky. I continued calling and texting but received no response. An hour passed, then 2. The shade from the small awning where we sat retreated as the sun moved. Overhead, leaving us exposed to the increasingly intense heat. Harper's fair skin, despite the sunscreen I had applied earlier, began to redden. We had only one bottle of water between us, which was now almost empty. Sweat trickled down my back as I paced, alternating between worry and anger. Maybe we should go back to the ship, Harper suggested after 3 hours had passed. Her voice was resigned, her shoulders slumped in a way that broke my heart. Let me try one more time, I said, dialing Jason again. This time, miraculously, he picked up. Steph, where are you guys? He asked, as if we were the ones who had disappeared. We are exactly where you sent us, I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. There is no private tour here. We have been waiting for 3 hours in the heat. Oh, he sounded genuinely confused. There must have been a mix-up. We are at Blue Lagoon Beach now. The caves were amazing. You should have seen them. Jason. I cut in, my patience evaporating like the last drops of our water. Harper is burned, dehydrated, and exhausted. We have been sitting in the sun for hours while you all enjoyed your private tour. How could you not even check to see if we found you? There was a pause before he answered. I thought you would figure it out and come back to the ship. If you could not, find us. Look, we will be heading back soon. Just meet us at the dock in an hour. Before I could respond, he had hung up. I stared at my phone in disbelief, then looked at Harper, who was watching me with knowing eyes. They did not want us there, did they? She asked, her voice small but clear. I could have lied. I could have made excuses for them as Jason always did, but looking at my daughter, with her sunburned cheeks and her dyes, I knew she deserved the truth. No, sweetheart, I said, sitting beside her and taking her hand. I do not think they did. A single tear slid down her cheek, leaving a trail through the dust that had settled on her skin. I tried so hard to make them like me. This is not about you, I said fiercely. This is about them and their narrow, cruel hearts. You are perfect exactly as you are. We took a taxi back to the port, stopping at a small market to buy water and aloe vera for Harper's sunburn. By the time we reached the dock, she was leaning heavily against me, drained by the heat and emotional toll of the day. As we waited in line to board the tender back to the ship, I made a decision. This would be the last time Walter family hurt my daughter. Whatever happened next, I would keep the promise I had made to her. The tender boat was nearly empty for the return journey to the cruise ship, most passengers still enjoying their time on the island. Harper sat quietly beside me, her eyes fixed on the horizon, a technique I had suggested to help ward off motion sickness. The gentle rocking barely seemed to register with her, now overshadowed by the greater discomfort of her sunburn and wounded spirit. When we boarded the ship, I suggested we go straight to our suite to rest. But Harper shook her head. "I want to see their faces when we find them," she said, with a determination that surprised me. "I want them to know what they did." We found the Walter family by the main pool, looking like a lounge under umbrellas with tropical drinks. Amanda and Eileen compared shopping bags from island boutiques, while their husbands discussed some business matter. The children splashed in the pool, showing off new snorkeling masks and colorful souvenirs. It was Jason who spotted us first, his smile faltering as he took in Harper's red face and my thunderous expression. He hurried over, speaking quickly before we could reach the others. "There you are. We were worried when you did not meet us at the dock. Were you?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "Is that why no one answered their phones for 3 hours?" Jason had the decency to look uncomfortable. "The reception on the island must have been bad. Look, I am sorry about the mix-up, but these things happen. These things happen." I repeated the words, tasting bitter. "My daughter has first-degree sunburn and dehydration, but these things happen." Before Jason could respond, Walter called out, "There they are! The lost explorers returned." His booming voice carried across the deck, drawing attention from nearby passengers. We approached the family group, and I watched their faces carefully. Not one of them showed genuine concern at Harper's obvious discomfort. Instead, Margaret tutted disapprovingly. "You should have worn a hat, Harper, and reapplied sunscreen." Amanda smiled with false sympathy. "You missed such an amazing tour. The caves had these incredible blue pools inside. Lucas showed them the pictures you took." Lucas held up his expensive digital camera, flipping through images of spectacular cave formations, the family posing by underground pools, everyone smiling and clearly having the time of their lives. "We saw all kinds of fish, and even a small octopus," Lily added, apparently oblivious to the tension. "Uncle Bruce said it was best excursion he's ever been on." Harper stood silently, taking in the souvenirs, the photos, the easy camaraderie. That had excluded her. When she finally spoke, her voice was small but steady. "Why did you lie about where you were going?" An uncomfortable silence fell over the group. Walter cleared his throat. "There was no lie, young lady. We went exactly where I said we would." "Then why send us to a different place?" I asked. "The address Jason gave us was for a public cave that does not even offer private tours." Walter waved his hand dismissively. "There must have been a misunderstanding. We did not have anything formally booked. We just found a local guide at the dock who offered to show us around. It was a spur-of-the-moment thing." I stared at him incredulously. A spur-of-the-moment private tour for 11 people that just happened to be available the moment you decided you did not want to wait for Harper? Now Stephanie Margaret interjected, her voice sharp. "You are making a scene over nothing. If you had better navigational skills, you would have found us eventually." Amanda nodded in agreement. "Or you could have enjoyed the public cave and joined us later. We sent Jason to explain the situation, did not we?" I looked at Jason, waiting for him to defend us, to acknowledge what had really happened. He shifted uncomfortably, then said, "It was just a misunderstanding stuff. No one meant any harm." In that moment, something broke inside me. A final thread of hope that this family would ever accept my daughter. That my husband would ever truly stand by us when it mattered. Eileen took that moment to turn to Amanda, saying in a stage whisper, "I told you this would happen. Some people just cannot handle themselves in unfamiliar situations." Amanda nodded, failing to hide a smirk. "Well, at least the rest of us had a wonderful time." Harper tugged at my hand, her eyes pleading to leave, but I stood firm. "You all deliberately left us behind," I said, my voice carrying across the deck. "You knew exactly what you were doing." Walter stood up, his face reddening. "That is enough, Stephanie. You are embarrassing yourself and this family. It was an honest mistake, and frankly, your attitude is spoiling what has been a lovely day for everyone else." Jason touched my arm, whispering, Steph, please, this is supposed to be a family vacation. Let us just move past this and enjoy the rest of the trip. I stared at him. This man I had married, who was once again choosing the comfort of his family over the welfare of my child. Move past this? I repeated, like we are supposed to move past every slight, every exclusion, every cruel word directed at Harper. When does it end, Jason? He looked pained, but said nothing, and in his silence, I heard his answer. Harper suddenly spoke up, voice stronger now. It is okay, Mom. They do not have to like me. We can just stay away from them for the rest of the trip. The simple dignity in her words nearly undid me. This 12-year-old child showing more maturity than an entire room of adults who should have known better. As we turned to leave, I overheard Amanda whisper to Eileen finally. Maybe now she understands that the girl needs to know her place in this family. Eileen laughed softly, if you can even call it family. Harper froze, and I knew she had heard them too. She looked up at me, her sunburned face set in a solemn expression, far too old. For her years, Mom, she whispered. Will you do what you promised? I met her gaze steadily and nodded. Yes, I said simply. I will. As we walked away, Jason called after us, but I did not turn around. My mind was already racing, formulating a plan that would ensure the Walter family never forgot what they had done today. The moment our suite door closed behind us, Harper collapsed onto the bed. The brave facade she had maintained in front of the Walter family crumbling away. Silent tears streaked down her sunburned cheeks as she curled into herself, making her seem smaller and younger than her 12 years. I sat beside her, gently applying aloe vera to her reddened skin. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I whispered, my own voice thick with emotion. You deserved better today. You deserve better every day. Why do they hate me so much? She asked the question, muffled against her pillow. I never did anything to them. This is not about anything you did or did not do, I assured her, smoothing her hair away from her forehead. Some people are just incapable of seeing past their own prejudices and narrow worldview. They decided long ago that only blood relations count as real family. Harper looked up at me, her eyes red-rimmed, but suddenly intense. What are you going to do? You promised. I had indeed promised. And as I looked at my daughter, exhausted and hurt by people who should have protected her, my resolve hardened. First, you need to rest, I said, helping her under the cool sheets. Drink this water and try to sleep. The sunburn will feel better after you have had some rest. Within minutes, Harper was asleep, her breathing deep and even. I sat at the small desk in our suite, opened my laptop, and began to implement the plan that had been forming in my mind since we left the pool deck. Step 1. Gather evidence. I connected to the ship's Wi-Fi and logged into Jason's email account. We had shared passwords early in our relationship, a gesture of trust that now served a different purpose. It did not take long to find what I was looking for. An email confirmation for a private island tour, booked and paid for 3 months ago by Walter. The tour description mentioned exclusive access to Blue Lagoon caves, transportation for 12 people, and a gourmet lunch on a private beach. The reservation had been made for all of us, Harper included, which meant her. Exclusion was no accident or misunderstanding, but a deliberate choice. I took screenshots of the email and several others discussing the excursions, saving them to my phone. I also photographed Harper as she slept, documenting her sunburn and the slight dehydration evident in her chapped lips. Step 2. Secure our departure. I booked 2 seats on a flight home, leaving the next morning using our emergency credit card that Jason was not connected to. I also arranged for a car service to take us from the ship to the airport at 7 in the morning, well before most of the family would be awake. Step 3. Protect our future. I transferred half the money from our joint checking and savings accounts to my personal account that Jason could not access. It was money I had earned, and we would need it for the difficult days ahead. Step 4. Ensure accountability. I composed an email to Mark Levinson, a partner at a rival law firm who had tried to recruit Jason last year. I explained the situation briefly and inquired about a consultation regarding custodial rights and divorce proceedings. His response was almost immediate, offering a meeting the day after we returned home. As I worked, there were several knocks at our door. I recognized Jason's pattern, but ignored them all. He called my phone repeatedly, then sent a series of increasingly desperate text messages. Please talk to me. My parents feel terrible about what happened. We can fix this. The captain is asking about Harper. Do I need to send the ship's doctor? I responded to the last one, only Harper is resting. She does not need the doctor. But I will have plenty to say to the captain later. With my immediate tasks completed, I gently woke Harper to make sure she drank more water and ate a light meal from room service. Her color was better, though. The sunburn still stood out starkly against her naturally fair skin. How are you feeling? I asked, as she picked at a sandwich. Better, she said, then looked at me with those perceptive eyes that missed nothing. You have been busy, I nodded, sitting beside her on the bed. We are leaving the ship tomorrow morning, going home early. She did not look surprised. What about Jason? He is not coming with us, I said simply. There was no point shielding her from the truth. She had seen and understood more than any child should have to. Harper nodded, a mixture of sadness and relief crossing her face. Are you getting divorced? Yes, I admitted. I think I have to. I cannot stay married to someone who will not stand up for you, who lets his family treat you this way. She was quiet for a moment, absorbing this. What about the rest of Water and everybody? A small, determined smile crossed my face. Before we go, they are going to understand exactly what they did and face the consequences of their actions. I have one more thing to do tonight. I explained that I needed to speak with the ship's captain and asked if she wanted to come with me or rest more in the suite. To my surprise, she sat up straighter and said, I want to come. I want to tell him what happened myself. We made our way to the bridge deck where I had requested a meeting through guest services. The captain, a distinguished man with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes, greeted us in a small conference room adjacent to the operational areas of the ship. Mrs. Walter, he began, then stopped when I shook my head. Miss Reynolds, I corrected. I kept my own name, and this is my daughter, Harper. He nodded, his expression growing serious as he took in Harper's sunburn. I understand there was an incident today during our call at Paradise Island. Please tell me what happened. Harper spoke first, her voice quiet but steady. As she recounted the day's events, she explained about her seasickness, about being told to meet the family at a location where they never were, about waiting for hours in the sun without water or shelter, about the family's reaction when we finally found them. The captain listened intently, his expression darkening. When Harper finished, I added the details she had left out, showing him the email confirmation for the private tour that had deliberately excluded us. This is a very serious matter, the captain said when we had finished. Abandoning a minor child in a foreign port goes beyond a family disagreement. It raises significant safety and potentially legal concerns. What happens now? I asked. With your permission, I would like to speak with your husband and his family, replied. As captain, I am responsible for the safety and well-being of all passengers, and I take that responsibility very seriously. I nodded, then added, I would prefer if you waited until tomorrow evening's formal dinner to address this. We will be departing the ship early tomorrow morning, and I would rather not have a confrontation tonight. The captain considered this, then agreed. I understand. I will speak with them dinner tomorrow. Is there anything else you need before you disembark? Just your assurance that this incident will be properly documented, I said, for when you do want to go over between that want no way. We're back in our suite. Harper and I packed our belongings in silence. When everything was ready for our early departure, she climbed into bed and patted the space beside her. I lay down next to her and she curled against me, like she used to do when she was much younger. Mom, she whispered in the darkness, are we going to be okay? I kissed the top of her head, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. Yes, I promised. We are going to be better than okay. We are going to be free. I awoke the next morning with a sense of calm resolve that had eluded me for much of my marriage. Harper was already up, standing by the balcony door, watching the sunrise paint the ocean in shades of gold and pink. She had always been an early riser, a trait that seemed particularly fitting today as we prepared to make our quiet escape. All packed, I asked, though I knew the answer. We had meticulously prepared everything the night before. She nodded, turning to face me. Do you think they will try to stop us? They would have to find us first, I replied, checking my phone. No new messages from Jason, which surprised me. Either he had given up or was planning a different approach. Our car will be waiting at 7. We will be off the ship before most people even start breakfast. We moved silently through the ship's corridors, our luggage rolling quietly behind us. The guest services desk was just opening as we approached to complete our early disembarkation paperwork. The young woman behind the counter processed our request efficiently, though. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw the note from the captain authorizing our departure. The captain has arranged for a crew member to escort you directly to the exit. Gangway, she explained, summoning a uniformed staff member with a discreet call. No need to wait in any lines. As we followed our escort through the crew areas of the ship, bypassing the main atrium where passengers would normally exit, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. We were almost free. The port was quiet at this early hour, with only a few taxis waiting for early departures. Our prearranged car was exactly where it should be, the driver holding a sign with Reynolds written in neat block letters, Harper. Smiled at this small detail, the use of my surname rather than a symbolic first. How are you on a step in our new beginning? By 9 in the morning, we were at the airport. By noon, we were in the air heading home. Harper slept for most of the flight, her head resting against my shoulder. I stayed awake in my mind, cycling through the events that would unfold on the ship. That evening, imagining the faces of the Walter family when they realized what they had done. We arrived home by late afternoon, our small apartment welcoming us with familiar comfort. I ordered pizza, Harper's favorite, and we ate it on the couch while watching a movie just like we used to do before Jason entered our lives. It felt like reclaiming a piece of ourselves that had been suppressed in our efforts to fit into the Walter family mold. As evening approached, I checked my phone periodically, knowing that on the ship, the family would be dressing for the captain's formal dinner, unaware of the storm about to break over them. Harper noticed my distraction. What do you think will happen when they find out we are gone? She asked, curled up beside me in her pajamas, looking younger and more vulnerable than she had in months. Probably confusion at first, I said thoughtfully. Then Jason will panic when he cannot find us. He will check with guest services and learn that we left early this morning. The family will probably be relieved, thinking we have removed ourselves from the situation, and they can enjoy the rest of their cruise in peace. Until dinner. Harper added a hint of satisfaction in her voice. On to dinner, I agreed. Though we were not there to witness it, I could picture the scene as clearly as if I were the Walter family, seated at their assigned table in the ship's grand dining room, dressed in their formal wear. Walter at the head of the table in his tuxedo, holding court. Margaret beside. In designer evening wear, her diamonds catching the light. Amanda and Patrick, Bruce and Eileen, all polished and proper. The children in their miniature formal attire, looking like they had stepped out of a luxury lifestyle magazine. Jason would be quieter than usual, worried about our absence but unwilling to disrupt the family harmony by expressing it too openly. They would order appetizers, make small talk comment on the day's activities, while carefully avoiding any mention of yesterday's misunderstanding. And then, as the main course was being served, the captain would approach their table, his formal uniform adding gravity to his presence. Conversations at nearby tables would quiet as passengers sensed something important was happening. Mr. Walter, the captain, would say, addressing the patriarchy directly, "I need to speak with you and your family about a serious incident that occurred yesterday." Walter, unused to being challenged, would bristle slightly, but maintain his public composure. "Is there a problem, Captain?" "Yes, sir, there is. It has been reported and documented that your family deliberately abandoned a PDT minor child Harper Reynolds at port yesterday for several hours without PDT supervision, water, or shelter. The family would freeze forks midway to mouths. As the PDT, this constitutes child PDT endangerment and violates not only our ship's code of conduct, but potentially maritime law, Miss Telv. Reynolds and her daughter have disembarked, but before doing so, they provided evidence of this incident, including premeditated planning to exclude them from a family excursion. By now, other diners would be openly staring, whispering among themselves. Walter would attempt to interrupt to control the narrative, but the captain would continue inexorably. In addition, the ship's doctor has documented first-degree sunburn and mild dehydration in the child. As captain, I am required to report this incident to the proper authorities, our next port of call. Margaret would clutch her pearls literally or figuratively. Amanda and Elaine would exchange panicked glances, suddenly aware that their cloaked, whispered comments had been overheard and reported. The children would look confused, especially Lucas and Lily Thomas and Zoe, who, had been raised to believe their family was above reproach. Jason would sit in stunned silence, the full weight of his failure to protect. Harper and Stand By Me finally sinking in. Furthermore, the captain would conclude, Miss Reynolds asked me to inform you, Mr. Jason Walter specifically, that she has contacted legal counsel regarding divorce proceedings and full custody of Harper. She has provided copies of all relevant documentation to our security office for safekeeping until they can be transmitted to the appropriate authorities. And with that, he would nod courteously and walk away, leaving the family in disarray, their perfect facades shattered in front of an audience of hundreds. My phone rang, pulling me from my vivid imagination. Jason's name flashed on the screen. I showed it to Harper, raising an eyebrow in question. She nodded and I answered, putting the call on speaker. "How dare you?" Jason's voice was tight with anger. "Do you have any idea what you have done? My father may lose business connections over this. People he knows were in that dining room." "Hello to you too, Jason," I replied calmly. "I see your priorities are as clear as ever. The captain publicly humiliated my entire family," he continued, as if I had not spoken over what. A misunderstanding about a tour. It was not a misunderstanding. I saw the email confirmation, Jason. The tour was booked for 12 people, including Harper. Your family deliberately sent us to the wrong location to exclude her. There was a moment of silence before he said in a slightly deflated tone, I did not know about that. I do not believe you, I replied. But even if that is true, you still chose to go with them instead of staying. With us. You still defended their behavior afterward. You still asked me to just get over it, like you have asked me to get over every slight against Harper since the day we married. Another pause, longer this time. Stephanie, we can work through this. Come back to the ship tomorrow at the next port. We can talk, fix things. There is nothing to fix, Jason. I have seen who you really are, who your family really is. I made a promise to Harper that I would protect her from anyone who hurt her, and I intend to keep that promise. You cannot just end our marriage like this, he protested. I already have, I said simply. Check your email. My lawyer will be in touch when you return. I ended the call before he could respond. Harper looked at me with a mixture of sadness and pride. You really did it, she said softly. I really did, I confirmed, pulling her into a hug. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. My phone began to light up with messages and calls from other members of the Walter family. A cascade of outrage and damage control attempts. I silenced it and set it aside. They no longer had any power over us. For the first time in years, Harper and I were truly free to be ourselves without apology or compromise. As we settled in for the night, in our own home, on our own terms, I felt no regret. Only a quiet certainty that I had finally done right by my daughter. And in the process, by myself as well. 6 months can change everything. As I stood in the doorway of our new apartment, watching Harper arrange her art supplies on the desk by the window, I marveled at how far we had come since that fateful day on Paradise Island. The apartment was smaller than the house we had shared with Jason, but it felt more like home than that place ever had. Sunlight streamed through large windows, illuminating walls we had painted ourselves in colors of our own choosing. Harper had selected a bright teal for her bedroom, a shade Margaret would have deemed garish, but that perfectly captured my daughter's vibrant spirit. In the months following our abrupt departure from the cruise, we had rebuilt our Helpsons to plan lives, piece by piece. I had taken the leap and opened my own graphic design studio, something I had dreamed about for years but had always hesitated to pursue. Partly due to Jason's subtle discouragement. Why risk it when you have a stable job, he would ask. Now, with only myself and Harper to consider, I had found the courage to take that risk. And it was paying off. I had secured several major clients within the first few months my portfolio, growing steadily along with my confidence. Harper, too, was thriving. She had transferred to an arts-focused charter school where her creativity was celebrated rather than merely tolerated. The shy, hesitant girl who had tried so hard to please the Walter family had been replaced by a more confident, outspoken young person who joined the art club and even made the honor roll her first semester. Mom, where should I put this? Harper called, holding up a framed photo of the two of us at her school art show, both grinning widely at the camera. On the bookshelf, I suggested, where everyone can see it. She nodded carefully, placing it in a prominent position before returning to her unpacking. I watched her move about the room with an ease and self-assurance that had been in nervous of us absent during our time with Jason and his family. The sunburn from the island had long since faded, but the lessons from that day had left their mark in more permanent ways. The legal aftermath of our cruise ship departure had been less dramatic than I initially feared. Jason, perhaps finally understanding the gravity of what had happened, did not contest the divorce.
The settlement was straightforward, with him agreeing to a generous child support arrangement that acknowledged his family's role in the emotional distress caused to Harper. Walter and Margaret, however, had been less willing to accept responsibility. Through their high-priced attorneys, they had initially threatened various legal actions from defamation to emotional distress claims. But when my lawyer calmly presented the evidence, including the email confirmation of the tour booking, the documented sunburn and dehydration, and statements from other passengers who had witnessed the family's behavior, they quickly changed tactics. A settlement offer arrived within weeks, a substantial sum offered in exchange for a non-disclosure agreement. I considered it carefully, not for the money itself, but for what it might mean for Harper's future. In the end, I accepted with one significant modification. Instead of a direct payment to us, the money would be placed in an educational trust for Harper, ensuring she could attend any college of her choice without financial constraints. My phone buzzed with an email notification pulling me from my reflections. It was from Jason, his third message this month. Unlike his initial angry communications, these recent emails had taken on a more reflective tone. I opened it, curious. Stephanie, I've been doing a lot of thinking these past months. The cruise incident forced me to see my family and myself more clearly than I ever wanted to. I realize now that I failed both you and Harper by not standing up for what was right. The therapist I've been seeing has helped me understand how I've spent my life, seeking my father's approval at the expense of everything else. I know it's too late for us, and I accept that. But I hope someday Harper might allow me back into her life, even in a limited way. I miss her spirit and her perspective on the world. Please tell her I'm sorry for not being the stepfather she deserved. Jason. I closed the email without responding immediately. Jason's awakening came too late for our marriage, but his acknowledgement of Harper's worth was something I would share with her when the time felt right. She deserved to know that at least one member of that family had eventually recognized their loss. Mom Harper's voice broke into my thoughts. She stood in the center of the room, looking suddenly serious. Can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. I patted the space beside me on the couch. Anything. She sat down, fidgeting slightly with the hem of her shirt. Do you ever regret what happened with Jason and everyone? I considered the question carefully. I regret that people who should have loved you chose not to. I regret that Jason was not strong enough to stand up for what was right. I took her hand in mine. But I do not regret protecting you or choosing to leave, not for a second. Harper nodded slowly. I heard Amanda and Eileen that day, you know. Before I asked if you would keep your promise, they were talking about me. When they thought I could not hear. What did they say? I asked, though I had a good idea. Amanda said I was never going to be real family because I did not have Walter blood. And Eileen said Jason should have found someone with no baggage. Her voice was steady, factual, rather than emotional. That is when I knew for sure. They would never accept me no matter what I did. I pulled her close, anger flaring anew at the cruelty of those women. They were wrong, Harper. So terribly wrong. I know she said simply, I used to think there was something wrong with me, something that made me unlovable to them. But now I understand. It was never about me at all. It was about them and their small hearts. Her insight, so mature for a 12-year-old, nearly brought me to tears. When did you get so wise? I asked, smoothing her hair. She shrugged, a small smile playing at her lips. I had a pretty good teacher.
Someone who showed me that real family protects each other no matter what. In that moment, I realized that despite everything, or perhaps because of it, Harper had gained something valuable from our ordeal. She had learned to recognize her own worth, to understand that love should never require diminishing yourself to please others. The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. It was the delivery of our new dining table, the final piece needed to make our apartment complete. As the delivery people set it up in our small dining area, Harper and I stood and went back, watching our home take its final shape. "What do you think I asked as they left?" "Perfect spot for family dinners." "Absolutely," she agreed, "even if it is just the two of us." "Especially because it is just the two of us," I corrected gently. "Our little family is complete, exactly as it is." Later that evening, as we christened the new table with takeout Chinese food, Denarby went. Harper asked about our plans for the upcoming school break. "I was thinking we might take a trip," I suggested. "Not a cruise," I added quickly, making her laugh. "Maybe a road trip up the coast. Just you and me, stopping wherever looks interesting." "That sounds perfect," she said, her eyes lighting up with excitement. "No schedules, no fancy dinners, no pretending to be someone we are not." "Exactly," I agreed. "Just us being us." As we cleaned up after dinner, I thought about how much our lives had changed in 6 months. We had lost a marriage and extended family connections, but gained something far more valuable: the freedom to be authentic, to build a life based on mutual respect and genuine love, rather than obligation or appearances. The Walter family, with all their wealth and social connections, had failed to understand the most fundamental truth about family: that it is built on love, acceptance, and protection, not blood ties or status. In trying to exclude Harper, they had ultimately excluded themselves from a joy of knowing an exceptional young person. Their lost, our gained. I have learned that sometimes the most difficult decisions are also the most necessary ones. Walking away from my marriage was painful, but staying would have taught Harper that she should accept mistreatment for the sake of keeping peace. Instead, I showed her that she is worth standing up for, that her dignity matters, that real love means protection, not compromise. Perhaps the deepest lesson in all of this is that family is not defined by shared DNA or legal documents, but by who shows up for you in your darkest moments, who celebrates your victories without jealousy, who sees your authentic self, loves you not despite it, but because of it. Harper and I may be smaller in number than the Walter family, but what we lack in size we make up for in the quality of our connection. We are not fractured or incomplete without them. We are whole exactly as we are. As night fell on our first day in the new apartment, I found Harper standing by, her bedroom window gazing up at the stars. I joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders, happy I asked simply. She nodded, leaning into me very. "You know what I was just thinking?" "What?" "We do not need a big family to feel complete." Sometimes all it takes is two people, one to keep promises and one to believe in those promises. Out of the mouth of babes comes wisdom that adults spend lifetimes trying to grasp. In protecting Harper, I had ultimately protected myself as well, breaking free from a relationship that required constant compromise of my values. In standing firm against injustice, even when it came wrapped in the package of family, I had taught my daughter the most important lesson of all: that true love never asks you to make yourself smaller, and real family expands to embrace you exactly as you are. Have you ever had to choose between keeping peace and standing up for what is right? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below.
Family dynamics can be incredibly complicated, and sometimes the bravest thing we can do is walk away from toxic situations, even when they involve people we care about. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to prioritize their well-being even when facing family pressure. Thank you for listening to our story, and remember that sometimes the family we choose is more important than the family we are born or married into.